Hello, First Things First listeners. This is Skip Bayless. Weekdays on Undisputed, I debate my co-host Shannon Sharp on the biggest sports news of the day. But now it is time for me to unleash in a brand new way. Introducing the Skip Bayless Show. My opportunity to share behind-the-scenes stories about things I've seen and confrontations I've had from decades covering the NFL and NBA. This is an opportunity to go so much deeper into solo opinions that just don't fit in rapid-fire debate. I will respond to your no-holds-barred questions. You can ask me anything about why I've said what I've said, or about what goes on off-camera on Undisputed. Your question should be as provocative as you want. My answer sure will be. New episodes of The Skip Bayless Show will come out each week. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts.
Oh, it was a night to forget for Cliff Kingsbury's Cardinals. Will he survive after Arizona's late season meltdown? Saints D-end Cam Jordan joined the 100 career sack club this season. He's going to join us a little later to help break down the playoff picture. Okay. Always fun when he stops by. And Russell Westbrook put Rudy Gobert on an extra large jumbo size. How are we going to frame that poster with this monstrous, thunderous jam last night? Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Chris Broussard, Kevin Wildes. Nick, could something like that silence the critics, the Russ critics out there? Could that kind of change the conversation?
Oh, you know, Jenna, Russ is going to have to do more. But that plus Stanley Johnson putting Rudy Gobert in the torture chamber maybe will silence some of the Rudy Gobert MVP truthers for a few minutes at least. Talking to you, Hollinger. Get it together, buddy.
The truthers. Oh, this was ugly. This wasn't great. We're out at SoFi, Cardinals, Rams. The NFL gifted us a Monday night playoff game, and it was the Rams who took full advantage of the big stage. Matt Stafford, even though we're watching Kyler here, Matt Stafford was excellent. Finally put it all together, threw for 2 touchdowns, ran one in as well. His long-awaited first career playoff win. Only had to throw it 17 times because that Rams defense made life absolutely miserable for Kyler Murray all night long. Pick-sixed him in the first half, never looked back. So after a blazing start to the season, Cardinals are done. Rams moving on now to face Tampa. 34-11 was your final. Broussard, I'm going to start with you. Who deserves the most credit for the Rams' dominant win last night?
Jenna, it's simple. Matthew Stafford, the quarterback. It's just as simple as that. All of the pressure was on Stafford. The pressure was not on Aaron Donald and Von Miller. It was not on Cooper Kupp, Cam Akers. Everyone was pointing to Matthew Stafford. And had the Rams lost this game at home to a wild card, a division opponent, Matthew Stafford would have gotten crushed. The talk would have been, did we give up too many draft picks for him? Was he worth all that? Did the Rams mortgage their future for nothing? And Matthew Stafford would have started his playoff career 0-4. That would have matched the all-time leaders, Andy Dalton and the great Y.A. Tittle. That's right, a Y.A. Tittle reference. You guys know I'm the wise elder. I'm the wise elder on the show. I read books about Y.A. Tittle, yes. And so he avoids all of that. And with all of that pressure on him, he goes out there and lights it up from the get-go and sets a great tone. He hits his first 6 passes are complete, 93 yards, a touchdown to OBJ. And then he runs in a touchdown as well on a QB sneak to get them off to a 14-0 lead. And look, the numbers bear it out. The Rams are 7-0 when Stafford doesn't throw an interception. They're 6-5 when he does. And so he played a clean game, no turnovers, and the Rams roll.
So here's the problem, Broussard, and I like that we were giving Matthew Stafford not his flowers plural, just flower singular. Like, here you go, Matthew Stafford. Like, oh, thanks, I guess. Better than being in Detroit. But since Josh Allen played so well, and since Patrick Mahomes played so well, unless you're doing superstar stuff, it's just like a good game kind of gets downgraded. Now, on the other hand, the Rams defense that we've been waiting to see since last year when they were number one in all these categories and fell off, finally showed up in a major way. And Nick, you know your old buddy Kevin Wildes is a defensive wins championships type of guy. They set the tone early. First five possessions for the Cardinals, -1 yard, 40 yards at halftime. They went 0 for 9 on third down. So look, I know that we want to talk about the coaches, talk about the quarterbacks, but I feel like too often on this show in particular, we go after the losing team for what they did wrong, rather than saying, hey, you know what? Maybe Aaron Donald, maybe Von Miller, maybe Jalen Ramsey. That Rams defense is as good as it gets. Tom Brady in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
Tom Brady in a little bit of trouble. A banged-up offensive line in this defense. Woo-hoo-hoo. Little nervous.
No, I think you make some good
worse,
points. I think Broussard makes some good points. Also, I don't know if the audience noticed. I don't know if Broussard and I did this on purpose, but Broussard wearing the colors from the Rams uniform the last time they won the Super Bowl. You guys remember those different uniforms they used to wear, the Kurt Warner Rams? You guys remember them, the little gold? And I'm wearing the colors from this year, which maybe this year they'll win the Super Bowl. But
that's a good
neither
use
here
of
nor
our
there.
time.
Jenna and Wildes didn't get the memo. Celebrating the Rams
It was
today.
not
Sorry, guys.
planned.
No, I'm wearing black for the Cardinals. They're in mourning this morning.
Exactly right. Jenna's wearing a Cardinals funeral. And we'll talk more about the Cardinals being a total disaster. Because,
That was
yes,
my line, but
the Rams defense was great. But Kyler played up to his height yesterday. And we'll talk more about him.
Yikes.
And yes, Stafford, and by the way, Broussard, I think this was the perfect situation for Stafford. Because it was almost a pressure-free playoff win after that first possession. The defense playing so well. No, he had a ton of pressure going into the game. But my point is, the game was out of hand so early that he could kind of play free and loose. And I do think that could spell trouble for the Bucs. But I want to give credit, first of all, to Sean McVay, because the game flipped on the pick six. It was 14-0. Shouldn't say flipped, but ended on the pick six. They only got that pick six because McVay did something very risky. Used his second challenge early in a game on this play that I thought was incomplete. But they had a full minute on the field where they're talking to New York, still ruled it complete because he had challenged the Stafford quarterback sneak earlier, even though he was right on that one. If he's wrong on this one, he's out of challenges for the game. McVay only challenged one play all year. And he had two successful challenges last night that were huge for them. They both directly led to touchdowns. So I want to give him credit. But the other person whose name has not been mentioned, and I will not stand for it, is a man who I'm old enough to remember us spending multiple days on the color of his visor and the size of his watch. And that is Odell Beckham Jr., who here is how the Rams scored offensive touchdowns last night. Odell caught one. The next drive, Odell had a 30-plus yard gain to put them at the 2. They scored a defensive touchdown. And the next one they scored, Odell set it up with a pass. So Odell Beckham Jr., who kind of clumsily and awkwardly forced his way out of Cleveland, Broussard, was right and has won and is in the city he wants to be in. Playing. This is the first playoff game since the infamous boat trip, which was followed by less infamous but far more important drops. And he was targeted 4 times. He had 4 catches. He had another big gain taken away by an offensive holding call by a lineman, and he threw a perfect pass. So Odell, I'm not saying he deserves the most credit of anyone on the team, but all 3 of their initial scoring drives, he made the biggest play. Either the touchdown catch, the big catch to set it up right there, or the pass to Akers. I think Odell deserves massive credit for getting into Los Angeles, not being any type of distraction, and just scoring touchdowns at will, seemingly.
I think that's a fantastic point. Brew, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Do you think that Odell's success in playing out on a national stage and how different his story is now than it was 2 months ago will make other wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks who aren't in perfect spots say, you know what? I'm just going to force my way out in the middle of the season. We haven't seen it. We've seen it in basketball where LeBron does something and people kind of follow. Maybe Tom Brady left his team. We see that Russell Wilson, maybe I'll leave one day. Do you think that what he did was not an aberration, that it will become the standard if you're unhappy with your team?
That's a great question, Wiles. I think guys will try. They're always trying. The NFL has tried to follow in LeBron James's footsteps, right? And what he's done in the NBA. And other players in the NBA obviously have followed LeBron and actually taken it to another level. So I do think guys will try. I think Odell has some unique leverage in that he's not only a great player, he's a superstar. All right, he's a celebrity. And so that gave him more I think ability to force his way out. He's such a huge star on social media and all of that. But yeah, Wiles, I do think just like we've seen Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers kind of look at Tom Brady and the way he left New England and say, you know what? Maybe I'll go start over somewhere else and win there too. So I think guys will try. And it has been a great landing for OBJ. There's no doubt about it. He's not dropping balls. He looks terrific. And he fits in. And Nick, you said it. A key is this, that he is not being a distraction. And while a lot of this will be put on Baker Mayfield, and rightfully so, OBJ also was injured in Cleveland a lot. And he was the one that wore the watch on the field. He was the one that had the visor. He was the one that gave Tom Brady the GOAT cleats before the game. So he did also make himself a distraction and a spectacle rather than, he's not doing that in L.A. They won't allow him to do it in L.A., so credit to them.
You know who never would do that?
Get another pair of
Y.A.
GOAT cleats made.
Y.A. Tittle. Always the same color visor.
Great quarterback.
He wore a $100 watch.
Broussard probably asked him about it. Back talking the Cowboys. Would they be making a big mistake sticking with Mike McCarthy next season? Let's talk about that next. First things first.
Good
But
call,
first,
Jenna.
we got to talk some Dallas Cowboys. The fallout from that devastating loss to the Niners on Sunday, another first-round exit, and as a result, as we discussed yesterday, questions about Mike McCarthy's future in Dallas. Stephen Jones was asked if he expects McCarthy to be back next season. He said, quote, absolutely, very confident. Nick, what do you think? Is it the right call or the wrong call for the Cowboys to bring McCarthy back?
Oh, I think it's absolutely unequivocally the wrong call, which is why Dallas will probably make it. But I've got a fix for them. I have a solution for them. Jerry, watch the game of the week, the final divisional round playoff game this weekend. It's going to be, I wish it were on Fox. It happens to be on CBS. That's okay. You can watch it. They're a great network too. Between the Bills and the Chiefs. And then interview one of those two offensive coordinators and hire the one you like more. If Brian Daboll can do that with Josh Allen, think of what he can do with Dak Prescott. Now, Dak Prescott does not have the raw talent that Josh Allen has, but he also doesn't have the raw mistakes that Josh Allen still makes. Now, Dak is older. And Eric Bieniemy has been this hot prospect for 4 years, and no one will give him a job for reasons that are far too complex to get into in this moment, but someone eventually will. You do that. You give Dan Quinn a raise, and then you turn the corner for your franchise from a smart football perspective, Broussard. You say, we are going to be the best team in the league at situational football. So you hold the press conference, you say, listen, I wanted to stick with Mike. I like Mike. You know, he and I have, put down a few drinks at his barn in Mapleton, Wisconsin, had a great time. However, situationally, we need to be better. It's 2022. There's a metaverse. There's robots with human faces, and we are operating these games like it's still the 70s. Like, dare I say, Y.A. Tittle was involved. And we are going to invest heavily in situational coaching that is not going to be on Bieniemy or Dable. It's going to be on our situational game coordinator. Cowboys always want to be innovative. Cowboys want to have the best stadium, the best practice facility.
Great take.
Invent a new position on the coaching staff. That guy gets a headset too. A lot of guys have analytics coordinator. No. Situational management coordinator. He stands right next to your new head coach, who will be a first-time head coach, because those end-of-game and fourth-down decisions, it's part gut, it's part game flow, it's part math, it's part risk management. Interview for that position, worldwide search, pay it a bunch of money, and do that. Go Dable or Bieniemy, keep Dan Quinn, upgrade that part of it, and maybe you can go win. But if you stay on pat, why would the results be any different, Broussard?
All right, look, I like Daboll and Bieniemy. I think they're great coaching candidates, all right, and prospects, and they both deserve jobs. Obviously, there's, 6, 7 jobs open this year, and they should get 2 of them. But you're not certain that either of them is going to be great. There have been a number of hotshot coordinators on both sides of the ball who haven't turned out to be great head coaches. I don't know if it would be those two. I'm just saying you don't know. And Nick, look, I don't want to come off as a champion for Mike McCarthy. I'm not saying he's Bill Walsh, but I'm saying I would give him 1 more year. All right, I wouldn't just go, it's not always just fire the coach. All right, they went 12-5, their best record in 5 years. He does it in his 2nd year, and it took Jason Garrett won 12 games like twice in a decade. All right, so they win 12 games. They had the number 1 ranked offense in the NFL with Dak battling a calf injury, we believe, because his play suffered, with Ezekiel Elliott playing on a bum knee. And the offensive line obviously is top notch, but they had nagging injuries that had guys in and out of the lineup on occasion as well. Defensively, with Dan Quinn, who did a great job as the coordinator, but I remind you, and a lot of people are saying they should hire Dan Quinn, Nick, just promote him and get rid of McCarthy. Dan Quinn went 14-23 at the end of his tenure in Atlanta. Yeah. So think about that before you want to promote him. But the defense went from one of the worst in recent memory to a top 10 scoring defense in the NFL. The players seem to like McCarthy, and relationships personalities matter. Now, the penalties, that's not always on the coach. They got to clean it up, no doubt. But Andy Reid's, last year they were highly penalized. He's obviously a good coach. And Nick, I said it yesterday, Brandon Staley this year, who a lot of people like as a coach, was highly penalized with the Chargers and cost them some games. So I would give him 1 more year. I think there's something to be said, Wilds, for stability. I'm not saying I'd lock him up like they did Jason Garrett for a decade, but give him 1 more shot, be healthy next year. You got young players that should improve, and I'd go run it back. And then if we can't do it, then Dak's locked up. Zeke is older. He'll be gone, but you can keep Tony Pollard, and you got your receivers, et cetera, and then maybe go in a new direction next year if things don't get better.
Yeah, I think you're right, Broussard. I think with the straw that breaks the coaching camel's back is usually turmoil within the organization. There can be a lot of noise outside, fire the coach, but we haven't heard anything from the Cowboys locker room like, maybe he's not the guy. If anything, we've heard the opposite. When we were playing Washington, and he said, we're going to beat them, there's a lot of noise. You can't do that. Media can't do that. Can't make a promise. Everyone inside the locker room seemed to like it. All of his motivational techniques that get criticized on the outside, inside that locker room, seem to make sense. And Nick, just to double down on your outsourcing, I think you could probably outsource penalties as well. You could just hire a penalty consultant. Figure out who it is. Again, worldwide search. And be like, look, what we've been doing obviously hasn't working. When I write stop getting penalties on the whiteboard, it just hasn't really hit. I think that is a great idea to just outsource your problems and let McCarthy be sort of the CEO.
if we want to leave Mike McCarthy as the head coach in name only and outsource literally everything that goes along with being a head coach of a team, then fine. I don't know why we do it, but fine. But I want to make a point to you, Wilds, and I want to make a point about Dak. The point to you is this. You have worked in enough organizations and with enough different teams to know sometimes a guy who is in over his head or a little incompetent, his best skill is making sure people like him. His best skill is he's the golf buddy, he's bringing in the coffee, he's chummy with everybody because he
But
he
is he
knows
the leader?
That
guy isn't the leader. McCarthy's the leader.
And I don't think he's a very good one. And I think that leader's part of leading an NFL football team is the penalties part of it. And I understand you bring up the Andy Reid part of it, but Andy Reid has so many other great qualities, and it's not consistently year in, year out the Chiefs are one of the most penalized teams. But I want to say one other thing about the Cowboys and why it's urgent and why right now you can't waste another year. There's a very odd thing that has happened in the NFL just by happenstance. Look at good quarterbacks in their 20s. Good, young quarterbacks. You have Mahomes, Burrow, Herbert, Allen, Lamar. I would include Lawrence. What do all those guys have in common? All of them are Pro Bowl caliber or better. I believe Lawrence will be, but throw them out if you want to. All of them are in the AFC. In the NFC, you have Kyler coming off the worst moment of his life last night, professional life, and Dak. That's it. Every other quarterback is older, and even the younger older one in Russell Wilson potentially wants out to the other conference. Rodgers might want out to the other conference. Brady is going to be 45. You're in a conference that has no high-level, middle-aged, by NFL standards, quarterbacks. You should be dominating. The next 5 years should be yours. You don't have time to waste. Like, this is the moment to strike. Eventually, Broussard, the NFC East is not going to be incompetent forever. Once upon a time, it was the toughest division in football. At some point, the Giants will get it right. At some point, Washington will get it right. Philly might get it right next year. They got 3 first-round picks. They got all the cap space they didn't have this year. I just don't think you can waste another year with McCarthy, Broussard.
We head back to SoFi, Cardinals, Rams, and a night to forget for Kyler Murray, who just looked out of sorts from the get-go. 137 yards, 2 interceptions, a 40.9 passer rating. Cardinals trail 28-0 just after halftime. And then they never really had a chance in this one. J.J. Watt, who worked his way back from injury to play in this game, talked afterwards about the embarrassing end to a once promising season.
It was a massive failure. I mean, from what we were capable of doing and from what we showed we can do to today, there's no other way to describe it.
And then late last night, Pro Football Talk published an article headlined, "Will Cliff Kingsbury Survive Arizona's Late Season Collapse?" Hey, Nick, you're laughing. I mean, this has been your corner all season long. You said this team would collapse down the stretch, and they did.
Yeah.
So you think the Cardinals need to make some drastic changes this offseason?
Listen, I'm biased on this. I wouldn't have hired Cliff Kingsbury. And so at every turn when you've said, would you fire him? I've said yes, because I wouldn't have hired him. Listen, sometimes football's complicated. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes the guy who went 13-19 in college in the Big 12 in games started by Patrick Mahomes isn't a good coach. Again, 13-19 with Patrick Mahomes as a starter. The Cardinals watched Mahomes win league MVP and then hired Kingsbury. It was bananas from the beginning. Kingsbury won't be there long term. The more interesting question, however, is this one, Broussard. Are they going to commit to Kyler long term this offseason? because 18 hours ago, I don't think it was a question. That playoff game, that was, remember how we talked about how the Bills had unprecedented first 7 possessions, 7 touchdowns, 8th possession was a kneel down? The Cardinals last night did the exact same, but the opposite. First team in playoff history, first 8 possessions were either 3 and out or a pick. 3 and out or a pick for the first 8 possessions. And if you're talking about number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, who, is a 500 quarterback through 3 seasons, Baker didn't get a contract extension. And Baker's numbers are very similar to Kyler's through 3 years. Baker won a playoff game. Look at this. Look at these guys. That's career numbers through 3 years. Baker had to sing for his supper this year, and he sang an off note. Kyler, I believe, is far better than Baker. But because of his size and durability questions, I don't know that I'd give him $40 million a year this summer, Broussard. I think I might want to see a little more. That, to me, yes, of course they should move on from Kingsbury. But what do you pay Kyler now, or do you wait? Because last night was alarming.
I wait. And I don't know why these teams rush to sign these players. Now, some guys, I guess it's a no-brainer. Fine. All right. But we saw the Rams make a mistake with Jared Goff, right? They rushed to sign him early. They didn't have to. And then they ended up having to trade him with 2 first-round draft picks and a 3rd in hand. All right. So I'm with you on Kyler. I still like him a lot. I think his potential is great. But there's no need to resign. He's locked up until 2024 under contract. And then after that, you have the franchise tag. So why in the world do I have to rush to sign him? And if it costs me more money down the line, Nick, because he proved that he's my guy, then I'm fine paying him more money. So I'm with you. The thing with Kyler, and obviously he was horrible last night, but I worried about Lamar Jackson early in his career staying healthy because he ran so much. Now, Kyler doesn't run as much as Lamar, but Kyler's smaller than Lamar. And Kyler, even though he's played most of the games, you have to wonder, is this guy going to be healthy through 16 games? He got hurt this year. I think he played 14 or through 17 games. He played 14 of the 17. And last year, even though he played late in the season, he was banged up. And I know guys get sore and stuff, but I think some of it may have been his style of play and his size. So I would definitely sit back and wait on Kyler Murray. I've got nothing to lose. He shouldn't take it as an insult. And Nick, here's the other thing. I'm on Cliff Kingsbury. I am with you in that I never would have hired him. I just don't know why I, as a running an organization, would hire a guy from a lower level with a losing record. All right, I'm with you there. However, now that he's there, Nick, now that they've gone from 5 wins to 8 wins to 11 wins, and he has a great relationship with my quarterback, who I'm trying to evaluate. All right, and I'm evaluating Kyler. Do I want to see him with a brand new coach next year? So, and I think Kingsbury, obviously the late game swoons are an issue, but DeAndre Hopkins' injury is huge, Nick. You look at all the teams remaining, they all have an elite receiver. Every single one of them. Devontae Adams. We see what A.J. Brown does for Ryan Tannehill. And Tyreek, obviously in Kansas City. Every team, Nick, has an elite receiver. Yeah. DeAndre lifted Kyler to another level last year, and they were 8-2 this year when DeAndre was playing. Stephon Diggs lifted Josh Allen to another level last year. And I think the loss of Hopkins this season was huge. Last thing I'll say, Wilds, on Hopkins. Heuston goes from 2 straight playoff appearances with Hopkins. They trade him, and they go 4-12 with a healthy Deshaun Watson. So I'm just saying lack of an elite receiver
DeAndre Hopkins is a great player. He's not the most valuable player in the entire NFL. And by the way,
I'm just saying his absence
I know you're not.
His absence hurt.
But you know what? It's the coach's job to overcome it. Mike Vrabel dealt with more injuries than anybody could imagine this year. They got the 1 seed. With Ryan Tannehill, you lost Derrick Henry. You didn't have A.J. Brown for a chunk of the season. Listen.
If they get beat this weekend, fire him?
No.
I mean, you're firing everybody.
Because
Get him out of
Vrabel
here.
is proven.
Firing everybody.
No, listen, Wilds. I'm not firing everybody.
Yeah.
Wilds. There's a reason
Tomlin,
the committee never believed in the Cardinals. There's a reason that a lot of us scratched our heads at the hire. And Broussard said it. You're below 500 at Texas Tech. You lose 3 out of 5 games that Patrick Mahomes started for you, and now every year you fall apart at the end of the year. What's the argument for Kingsbury? What is it? Tell me.
Steady improvement. Steady improvement is the argument. And I'll illustrate this with a quick story. When I first joined this show, I talked to Nick. He's like, Wilds, we need to get our chemistry going. I said, that's good. You want to go out to dinner or something? He's like, no, road trip. I said, all right, let's go on a road trip, buddy. So we went on the road trip. Car ran out of gas. I was like, sorry, bud, we got to get some new gas and we got to get a new cord for our microphone. And Nick said, you know what we should do instead? We should throw away our car. Sorry, I can't button this. We got to throw away the car. I said, Nick, we don't need to throw away the car just because we ran out of gas. Just because they run out of gas, they're almost a victim of starting too hot. He inherited 3-win teams, got 5 wins, 7 wins, 11 wins. That is steady improvement. Joe Judge was claiming steady improvement and went that way, he got fired. If you go, you inherit 3, 5, 7, 11, you keep on adding pieces. They added DeAndre Hopkins, they added J.J. Watt. They're getting better. So why would you start, why would you want to just cut it and start super fresh? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Because for 9 straight summers, I've gone on a road trip with you. And every single one, around halfway through, we run out of gas. Every single one. For 9 years of coaching. Cliff Kingsbury, it's beautiful. We're looking at the Appalachian Mountains. Oh my God, look at this amazing brook with these little fish. We're having a great time. We're having picnics. And then, right around the time we get to the Rocky Mountain Pass, the car breaks down. Like, okay, I'll go again next year. For 9 years in a row, it goes great.
The college
and
doesn't
it goes
count.
off the rails.
College does not count.
Okay, all right, so then 3 years in a row. You going on 3 straight road trips with somebody that halfway through it falls apart?
Nick, in Detroit, I'm going to give you, this goes for McCarthy too. Because Wild said it's steady improvement. When Jim Caldwell was coaching in Detroit, they made the playoffs 2 out of his 4 years, I believe. They went 9-7. The GM says 9-7. Not good enough for us. Not good enough for us.
That's right.
Fires him. They bring in Matt Patricia, who looked hot, right? Bill Belichick coaching tree, all this.
That was dumb.
And you saw what happened. And then they brought in Dan Campbell, and they're winning 3 games, and they're happy. So I'm saying when you've got a guy that's improving the team and you're winning, you stick with him. At least give him another year.
Exactly.
5, 8, 11 wins. Why am I firing the guy? Good relationship with the QB.
Okay.
So nobody's going to tell me we're doing road trips every summer? I'm just sitting here with my 2 kids, and y'all are off seeing the country running out of gas.
I'm like you, Jen.
I
want in this summer.
I'm so angry right now. Yeah. Me and you, Brew, we're going on the road, but we're taking the train. Here we go. We got Saints All-Pro DN. Cam Jordan joining us next. I'm not running out of gas. He's never run out of gas. We can't wait to talk to him. But first, Chiefs head coach Andy Reid, when asked how hungry he is to win another Super Bowl yesterday, take a listen to his little interpretation of the question.
If you like chocolate cake and you eat a piece, and then you have one dangled in front of your face, you're probably going to want to eat that too. Not much is going to stop you. So, I mean, that's how you feel about the Super Bowl. I mean, that is a chocolate cake with the ultimate frosting.
First things first, Saints All-Pro DN Cam Jordan, another standout season for him, 12.5 sacks, 3 of which came against Tom Brady, which counts like an extra 5 or something if we're doing the special counting. Cam Jordan joining us this morning. Hey, Cam, great to see you again. Thanks for getting up early, although you said your kid's been up for an hour and a half. So thanks for hanging out with your kid and us this morning. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys for having me on. Look, I had to get breakfast started up early today. It is what it is.
I get it. No, we've all got young ones. I get it. All right, so let's dive in. Talk some Cards Rams. This one was all Rams. You watched it. Matt Stafford finally putting it all together. Threw for 2 touchdowns, ran one in as well. His long-awaited first career playoff win now under his belt. He only had to throw it 17 times because that Rams defense, they just made life miserable for Kyler Murray all night long. Pick sixed him in the first half, never really looked back. So the Rams are now moving on to face Tampa. 34-11 was your final. Cam, I'll start with you. Who do you think deserves the most credit for the Rams' dominant win last night?
Am I biased? I might be a little bit biased. I'm really thinking about the defensive line took over. I mean, they from start to finish, they just took over, collapsed the pocket. I think they only finished with 2 sacks, but it seemed like every play it could have been a potential sack. I mean, they had Kyler running for his life early and often, and as a defensive line, I love to see it. I mean, it's just the complete takeover.
So, Cam, I'm going to throw this back to you. Early, I thought you came on before the season started, and we were talking about, hey, are the Saints going to be any good? We had some questions about, like, the post-Drew Brees era. And he was like, well, it's going to come down to the defense. Like, we're going to be good. And you were right. You went into Foxborough. You beat my Patriots. I was like, oh, I wish I didn't. He predicted it. It was exactly right. Now, what we saw last night, the narrative right now spinning around all the talk shows is maybe Kingsbury doesn't have it. Maybe Kyler doesn't have it. I'm trying to go the other way. I'm trying to say the Rams defense, who didn't put up the numbers that they did last year, is actually as good as we thought they were and might be peaking at the right time. When you watch a game like that, what is the balance of, you know what, the quarterback played poorly or the defense played awesome? How do you come out with a determination on if the quarterback played poorly, independent of the defense, or the defense was just that good?
No, I mean, it looked like the defense was just that good. I mean, it looked like the pocket was collapsed every turn. I think they ended up with 2 sacks at the end of the night, but you could see the cause and effect. I mean, from the interception for the touchdown early on to the collapsed pocket to some of the throws, Kyler not being able to maneuver out of the pocket as he normally does. I mean, I think the defense and the defensive line played so well that you're right. I think they're peaking at the right time because it just looked like they rendered the Cardinals offense ineffective, which I'm not going to lie, took me by surprise.
All right, let me try to bring some neutrality to the show because we have a future Hall of Fame D-lineman in Cam Jordan talking about the D-line. Kevin Wildes obviously played defensive line in his football playing days. I, meanwhile, we don't talk much about my playing career, but I was a Rivals top 150 ranked flag football wide receiver. So let me talk about the receivers. Most notably Odell Beckham Jr. So Odell was, the problem in Cleveland. We talked about watches. We talked about visors. We talked about IG posts. And, I'm not saying Odell's daddy is, right about everything, but Odell's dad said, I think the quarterback is not hitting my son who's still open a lot. And he kind of awkwardly and kind of clumsily forced his way to the place he wanted to be all along, Los Angeles. And Broussard last night, in his first playoff game, since the infamous boat trip heard around the world and the less infamous but far more important drops that followed, he caught their opening touchdown. He set up their second touchdown with a 30-yard gain to the 2. Then they scored on defense. And then their next offensive touchdown, make it 28-0. He had the biggest play of that drive by passing the ball, a play he made once upon a time to Saquon Barkley with the Giants years ago. Because I think part of Odell's frustration in Cleveland might have been, not only am I not getting the ball thrown to me, but I throw a prettier deep ball than Baker does. So I do think that it's important that for guys that we criticize, that we also then do the same in the other direction. Odell wanted to play on the biggest of stages. He, for the first time in years, was on that stage last night and delivered in every way imaginable for a wide receiver.
Nick, OBJ was great. He's catching the ball. He's not dropping it. Remember, he had some drops in Cleveland. He's not doing that in L.A. He's doing it in different routes, all types of passes he's catching. He looks great. I'll give him credit. And Cam, you talked about the defense. Obviously, they were stout last night. But the most important player last night, his name has not even been mentioned yet. And that was Matthew Stafford. He was the guy under the microscope. OBJ wasn't under the microscope. Cam Akers, Aaron Donald, Von Miller, they were not under the microscope. It was Matthew Stafford. And as great as the defense was, as great as OBJ was, if Stafford doesn't play well, they don't win that game. They don't get up 14-0. He completed his first 6 passes, 93 yards, touchdown, and scored himself on a quarterback sneak. So, Cam, I thought Stafford was critical to that game last night because everybody's wondering, can this guy win a big game? He was 0-3 in the playoffs in Detroit. He goes out there and delivers, and they're 7-0 when he doesn't throw an interception, 6-5 when he does. He was clean last night, and obviously you saw the result. So, Cam, I want to throw this at you. I know you guys didn't play the Rams this year, but do you think they made the right choice from what you see from Stafford and going against Goff, that made the right decision to give up Goff and all those draft picks to get Matthew Stafford?
I mean, it's certainly a win now mentality. I don't know if it's the right move yet. I mean, this is still a Rams team that went to go get Von Miller as well as to pair up with Aaron Donald. That's 2 of the most prolific pass rushing defensive players you're going to have. When you talk about Matt Stafford versus Jared Goff, I mean, Jared Goff took him to a Super Bowl too. So the difference maker for me would be if Matt Stafford goes to the Super Bowl and wins it. That would be, it was all in. I mean, the team is clearly all in. They're clearly all bought in. You think about the players that they've accumulated over the last couple seasons to be so talented this year. Matt Stafford could be that reason. He could be that final piece.
See, I want to talk about the other quarterback. And Nick, I'll throw this to you because you were talking about Odell.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 ways that we kind of like judge players' careers. One is we take a fine-tooth comb of watching the all-22, and we diagram every play, and we give it a grade, and we try to figure out who's good, who's over. It's time-consuming. The other way to do is you see one play, and you're like, wow, that is indicative of that guy's entire career. And with Odell, Odell had that one-handed catch, and we say, this guy is special, and he should be great, and he should be doing great things. That one play defines him. What do we think about Kyler's underhand pick 6 in an end zone in his first in his playoff game? I would say not great. Is it the counterbalance to Odell's catch? No. But to me, it felt like a little bit of a canary in a coal mine of like, why are you so nervous? Why are you so stressed? Why are you making a throw? Did that register with you like it registered with me?
Well, listen, you know, as a wise man once said, you never go full Wentz. And he went full Wentz there, and you never want to do that. I am willing to give almost anybody, young quarterbacks that played terribly in their first playoff game. There is such a long list of quarterbacks whose first playoff game they looked totally out of sorts and then went on to have great careers that I can, I can reserve judgment on Kyler's performance yesterday, which was historically bad. I mean, the team's offense was. First 8 drives of the game was either 3 and out or an interception. That's awful. Here is, though, what I won't reserve judgment on, and I'd like Cam's comments on it before we move on. Is he just too small to last? He's the smallest quarterback in NFL history. That always concerns me. I don't want you to be the tallest quarterback in NFL history. Sorry, Brock Osweiler. And I don't want you to be the smallest quarterback in NFL history. I just don't want either end of those curves. And when the league is populated with people such as yourself, Cam, do you think, a legitimate concern? I know Breeze was little, but Breeze didn't play the same style, and Breeze was bigger than Kyler. Is he going to be able to take the punishment of the full 17-game season, or is getting banged up at the end of the year, like he was last year, like he was this year, what you should expect for a quarterback his size?
Look, I don't even know if that goes quarterback his size. That's any one of these scrambling type quarterbacks. I mean, that's the risk you run when you're being electric. When you're going against, when you're getting hit by guys who look like me or are bigger, you always run that risk. But I think he's electric. I think he does a lot of great things. You can't replace what he brings to that team. You think about where they were a couple years ago versus where they've been with Kyler Murray. This season was nothing short of amazing. So I can't say he's too small. I will say maybe they have a better offensive line that can protect him a little bit more. He was rattled this game. I mean, if you talk about, again, it looked like a jailbreak more times than not. I wouldn't put it on him just yet. I would put it on the offensive line before I put it on him.
But he's all those things when he's out there, and that's the problem, as he gets injured so often. All right, Cam, stick around for a little bit with us, because we want to talk about one of your favorite quarterbacks to sack, Tom Brady. What is the recipe for slowing down Tampa, Tom? We'll get Cam's take next. First things first. We got Saints DN Cam Jordan still with us. I involved him in our little Stack the Cash contest. Cam, you finished the season strong, 8.5 sacks in the final 4 games. You joined the 100 career sack club in the process. 100 sacks. It's a heck of a milestone, buddy. Yeah, you pound that chest. You own that. What does that mean to you?
Congrats.
Man, that's a huge milestone. One I don't even know if I really dreamed of as a kid. Entering the league back in 2011, I was like, man, if I get like 50 or 60 sacks, that's a heck of a career. Like, you can't tell me if I can make a couple Pro Bowls, like, I'm not a failure, Steve Jordan. Like, Pops had 6 Pro Bowls. I can't be a failure. Like, we've got things we got to accomplish. But to get 100 sacks, and to get 100 sacks on Tom Brady, which is arguably the most accomplished quarterback, most accomplished player in sports history, that's awesome. He was sacked 100 and 101, might I add. And I'm still looking for a Tom Brady jersey. I'll probably have to donate to buy one or something. I have to go to the Tampa game and just like be a random fan and hope Mike Evans throws me a ball to trade for a Tom Brady jersey.
I'm sure that's the
reason you
way
can't
to
get one, Cam, is you can't catch Tom after a game because you guys win those games, so he leaves. If you lose, he'll talk to you. There's a lot of stuff. I'm just curious, real quick, the 100 sacks. You mentioned your father. Will you thank him or Matt Ryan first when you make the Hall of Fame? Because I think about a quarter of those sacks were Matt Ryan. Who gets the first thank, Dad or Matt Ryan?
Man, I needed Dad to exist, and I needed Matt Ryan to stay in the NFC South for so long, right?
Yeah, okay, all right. So both.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Well, congratulations. Here's to, let's call it another 100. Go for it. All right. Speaking of Tampa, speaking of Tom, let's talk about your NFC South rival, Tampa Bay Bucks. They had no problem on Sunday dispatching the Eagles in the wild card round. So the Rams win last night sets up a showdown Sunday afternoon now between Tampa and LA for a trip to the NFC title game. Cam, you guys beat Brady and the Bucks twice this year. So tell us, what is the key for the Rams now to beat him? Is it getting pressure on Brady? Is that what this is all going to come down to?
Absolutely. I mean, if you can make Tom uncomfortable, if you can get Tom to look at that off the line, the infamous like, I'm frustrated glance and then a couple words, you know it's going to be a good game for you. Because we all know like how hard it is to actually sack Tom Brady. You hit Tom and he just speeds up the ball. I mean, he's methodical in everything he does, so that's what's so frustrating. As a defensive lineman going against Tom, you hit him once and he just speeds up the pace. You sack him, he speeds up the pace. So it's going to be a lot like the Cardinals Rams game. They might not show it on the stat line that, hey, he was sacked 7 or 8 times, but it'd be sacked 2 times, but 18 pressures. And if you get those pressures, if you can start getting them off the pocket, if you can really start getting them frustrated, that's where you see success. Well, at least the 4 out of 5 times.
All right, so I don't. I mean, you guys are always pressuring. I don't want to give my pick for this game yet, not because I haven't made it, but because, let's be honest, I want people to continue tuning in because when you're as hot as me, picked all 6 winners this week, 4-2 against the spread, by the way, a perfect NFL playoff so far. People are going to wait. Who's Nick picking this week before they put their bets in, their picks in? So we're going to wait on that. But I'm going to tell you how I'm leaning, Broussard. I think I'm leaning Rams, particularly if Tristan Wirfs The Bucs' standout right tackle, who played every single snap this year, isn't able to play. He left this past week's game in a walking boot, so not better than a bye for Tampa because they got banged up. But here's the other reason I think I'm leaning Rams. Can we show the Bucs' schedule? The Bucs had a nice record without a lot of nice wins. You look at it, and it's early in the year. It's like, oh, okay, that's a nice win against the Cowboys, who are no longer playing. It's a, close win against the Patriots, who are no longer playing. The Colts didn't even make the playoffs. You beat them. Your best win is probably the Bills. That was an overtime game. And you see, obviously, the Saints beat them twice. And the other thing that jumps out at me on this is Broussard. It's not just that those are mediocre teams they beat. Those are particularly bad defenses aside from Buffalo. And so I think there's a real legitimate concern about the Bucs' ability to beat top flight competition. I just don't think they have a lot of experience against it this year. I know it's been folly for 20 years to doubt Brady. And, I keep showing up in his stupid documentaries doubting him while he laughs at me. And I'll probably do it again this year. But I think the Rams are in a really good position, particularly if Wirfs is out for this game.
Well, look, it's obviously going to be a tough game. I'm with Tampa. I've been with them in the NFC all season. I'm going to stick with them. But sure, the Rams are going to give them trouble. If they don't have Tristan Wirfs, then I think you almost have to pick the Rams, all right, if they don't have Wirfs. But I'm going to stick with them. And, Nick, the thing is, even though this year they didn't beat many good teams, they have that history just going back to last year. So they know they can do it, and they've proven they can beat good teams. And I thought their defense looked much improved on Sunday against Philadelphia. I get it. It was Philadelphia. But having all the guys, Shaq Barrett, JPP, all these guys back, I thought they looked much better, much fresher, and much tougher on the defensive side of the ball. Cam, I want to throw this at you because Nick brought up the Rams, and the Rams beat Tampa Bay this year in the regular season. You guys have owned Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in the regular season, and last year he didn't play well against you. I think he had 5 interceptions in the 2 games in the regular season against you guys, but then in the playoff he had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Did you see a difference in Brady in the playoffs versus in the regular season? And what do you think that, if so, what does that mean for the Rams coming up this weekend?
No, I think Tom is always exactly who he's been. He's a model of consistency. I think over his career, you would not find too many chinks in that armor. I do think that, the one time we did lose to Tampa, we ended up throwing, what was that, 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions? It was the game that it takes a lot to win after that. And when we think about a team game, I just think that Tom Brady, it's hard to go against him. I do think it's going to come down to a battle of who's pressured more. I think Shaq Barrett, I think Vita Vea, I think Ndamukong Suh is a formidable D-line front. I think Leonard Fournette. I think Floyd, as well as Von Miller and Aaron Donald. I mean, it's fun. It's going to be a fun game for me to watch either way. Will I be rooting for any team? Nah. If it's not the Saints, it's Saints versus everybody. But I will simply say that, I'm always intrigued by defensive line play, so I'll be looking forward to those.
So this is why I'm nervous as throwing my loyalty behind Tom Brady. No Chris Godwin? Okay, next man up. No AB? Okay, next man up. Now Bruce Arians is saying Wirfs and Ryan Jensen, game time decisions. And the funny thing about the Wirfs thing, Cam, when you're watching the Eagles game, Wirfs obviously couldn't go. And he was trying to get back in the game, and he's on one leg. It was pretty obvious that he couldn't go. At what point do you think there's just not enough, depth of the Bucs where they are vulnerable to just being taken out by the Rams?
I'd only simply say 2 things. 1, Tom Brady. 2, right tackle, which means he's in the vision of Tom Brady. I mean, it's not like he's coming off the left edge where he's got a blind spot to him. It's rushing on the left versus right tackle. You're in the vision of a quarterback the whole time. So that's something that he can overcome. Again, Tom Brady, And
Gotcha.
it's sort of hard to bet against the house, but I will say the Rams are poised to do so if anybody is.
Cam, this was fun. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. This is great.
You're the best, man.
Appreciate your perspective. Enjoy the off season. Enjoy not rooting for anyone unless you're playing them, and then you're rooting for yourself. First things first, let's head back out west. Cardinals Rams last night, and more evidence that Odell Beckham Jr. is actually still an elite receiver. 4 catches, 54 yards, had his hand in almost every play, caught the game's first touchdown in the Rams' 34-11 blowout victory. That is now 6 touchdowns in 9 games as a Ram for OBJ. Took him 20 games in Cleveland to reach the same total. So, Nick, is Odell's success maybe an indictment on Baker Mayfield?
It's somewhat of an indictment on Baker, but it's more a testament to Odell. And there are certain things that have become very popular to say that I totally disagree with. Something people love in sports media saying or tweeting. It's let's give him his flowers while he's alive. I don't want flowers. No, that's fine. There's a reason funerals have the great arrangements. Like, no, it's fine. I hate this. It's like everyone's like, give them their flowers. They're still alive. Like, that's what the paycheck, that's what the money's for. As Don Draper said, that's what the money's for. But one thing I do agree with is this. Make the retraction as loud as the original story. And the original story was Odell's a diva, Odell's a problem, Odell might be washed. Odell, by the way, still a diva. Not a problem,
Still a diva.
Definitely not washed. And for as much ink as was spilled and airtime as was spent talking about his $250,000 watches and his super dope visors, we're now seeing that he has a competent NFL quarterback for the first time since his first couple years with Eli, before Eli went off off the deep end, essentially, from a play perspective, and he got away from Baker. What's he out there doing? Well, let's think about it, Broussard. The reason the Rams won the division was because he won them the Ravens game with the 4th down catch and the touchdown catch to save their chances at winning the division. And then in the first playoff game he's had since the boat trip, another thing we spent a ton of time on, he scored the first touchdown, set up the second touchdown, and then threw the key pass for their 3rd offensive touchdown. So yeah, I think this is a testament to Odell, and it's got to be, just like the Packers making all these NFC Championship games is a bit of an indictment retroactively on Mike McCarthy, it's got to be a bit of an indictment on Baker Mayfield. It's got to be.
Odell has been tremendous, Nick. There's no doubt about it. And I hope he stays in L.A. next season because he's with, like you said, a competent quarterback, to say the least. And he's got great receivers alongside of him that also draw attention so he can do his thing. I'd love to see if he's there next year, who does more, Cooper Kupp or OBJ? I'm not negative competition, but positive competition. So I'd love to see him stay there. He's playing great. And absolutely, it has to be an indictment on Baker Mayfield. Not the type of indictment where Cleveland has to do a Nick Wright and fire him, get rid of Baker by all means necessary. But no, it is clearly an indictment on Baker Mayfield. It has to be. But here's what I'm going to say in Baker's defense. OBJ, and you mentioned it, he's still a diva. Okay, he still has a great, colorful personality. Okay, he's still popular in the locker room. Okay. But he is not doing the type of things he did in Cleveland. He didn't show up for a game with a watch on and warm-ups that he planned to wear. Okay, he didn't show up with a visor that can't be, worn during the game. He didn't show up giving goat cleats to Tom Brady or whoever the other good quarterback is for the opponent. Okay, he went to L.A. and kept the main thing, football. Now I get it. He's smart. So he knew he was going into a situation where you got a team that could win a Super Bowl. You've got other great receivers. They don't really need you. Initially, you're like a third or fourth option. And so he was smart. I'm just going to play football. What I say to Odell, do that the rest of your career because this dude is awesome. And you can still be colorful away from the team and be popular and have commercial on it. But keep it when you're on that field. Don't throw the tantrums. We don't need all the crazy antics. Just keep it football, and that's what he's doing in L.A. He didn't do that in Cleveland, Wilds. So I think that's give Baker a little bit of slack because it was somewhat of a different OBJ there in Cleveland. And he was hurt a lot, too.
So I think you make some great points, but it's Rams-Bucks. If you give a guy goat cleats the first time you play, I think, and Odell didn't do that themselves. He's not a sneaker customizer. Well, the sneaker customizer was like, hey, just checking in. Do you want another pair of goat cleats? And if Odell said, you know what? Let's run it back. Let's just get some regular sneakers instead of the cleats. Nick, you would have an issue with it. So I think Broussard is right. A lot of these things went away. The weirdest part is this, Nick. The touchdown, the pass, do we think those are passes that Baker Mayfield can't make? Those aren't like extraordinary long bombs, arm strength, no-look passes. It's just like a little nice lollipop of a throw and catch. So why do we, I don't understand, but when I saw this, I was like, oh, Baker. Like, part of this is on Stefanski. Like, is that complicated of a play that Baker can't make?
No, listen, it was an organizational failure to trade for Odell Beckham Jr. and then never figure out how to use Odell Beckham Jr. I agree with that. It's not just on Odell. By the way, I wouldn't have a problem if you gave Brady something, just like I didn't have a problem with the watch. And by the way, yesterday there was a moment where he seemed to be yelling on the sidelines upset about something, but I don't care about that stuff. That stuff just doesn't matter. We just use it to fill because it's interesting to talk about. But if we want to talk about, I think we pick guys that are flamboyant or interesting, and then depending on how they're playing, we decide if their flamboyance and interestingness is a positive or a negative. Like, that's just how we do things. And so Odell has been the subject of that. But I don't think it's ever impacted it. I don't think he's better with the Rams because of the visor or the watches. I just think he's made a legitimate, small, short movie about his decision to go to the Rams and keeps updating it. And it never gets talked about because they're winning and he's playing well. But one free piece of advice to the folks at Progressive. If you really want to get some free advertising, because I haven't seen those Baker Mayfield commercials this playoff weekend, get Odell in an ad immediately and run those where you were running the Baker ad. It's really unfair to Baker, but it'd create a little bit of buzz.
Best thing you've said all day, Nick. Best thing you've said all day.
I'm glad I got it in.
It's a lot.
It took 2.5 hours or two hours, but finally.
All right, that stage is set. Sunday afternoon in Tampa. We got to go. Much more on this game coming up next on Undisputed.